All right, welcome to Java with JG, a conversation series at the intersection of community, career, and personal growth. For this conversation, we have Ron Mark, best-selling author, president, and trusted advisor of Chicago Investment Advisory Council. Welcome, Ron.
Hey, John. Hey, glad to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Love it. All right, so Ron, the format of our conversation is going to start off with a quick lightning round so the audience can get to know you a little better.
Okay.
Followed by some background questions, and then we'll talk about your professional and then your community as well. So lightning round, Ron. Here we go. That was a tongue twister. So, what is something that you wish you were better at?
Golf. Right off the top of my head, because we were talking about it earlier. Golf. I wish I was better at golf.
Fair enough. That's a good answer. All right. What is the most used
You've
app?
You've seen my game, John, so you know.
Again, it can only go up, Ron. It can only go up. What is the most used app on your phone?
Oh, gosh. Probably one of my trading apps, to look at the markets, execute trades if I'm on the road, for sure. Definitely trading app.
Okay, all right. What is a luxury you cannot live without?
A luxury I can't live without. Gosh. I like to grill. So I have a very, very nice grill in my backyard. Kind of over the top. I really like to grill, like smoking meats. So yeah, my grill. A very expensive grill.
All right, follow-up question to that one. What is your favorite piece of meat?
Gosh, steaks. I grill a really mean steak, John. Really mean steak. And after that, it's probably smoked ribs. I still haven't perfected the smoked brisket. I've tried it like 10 times and failed like 9. That's hard. Okay. Brisket is hard.
All right, and last question. No, 2 more questions. What book are you reading? Because I know you're a bookworm.
Great. I am currently reading, it was a book. It's called How to Find Love. I think it's by James Sexton. I think it's something about love. How to find love or how not to lose love. It was written, write this down, John. It's pretty good. James Sexton, Sexton. He's one of the foremost divorce attorneys. So he was writing about like how when people come to his office, it's already too late. So he can't give good advice on like how to have a great marriage. He gives good advice on how to avoid having a really shitty blown up marriage. That's a great book. You'll see him on YouTube, James Sexton. The guy's number one. He's deep experience. Number 2, he's hilarious. So yeah, I learned some stuff already after reading like the first 3 chapters, what not to do.
That's Anita probably appreciates that. That's good.
Yes, I gave her a copy as well.
All right, last question. All right, what is your favorite city and why?
Gosh. There's different levels for that, John. Greatest city, I think. The greatest city, I'll give you 3 if I may. Number 1, Chicago, because born here, raised here. People here are great. Our food is, awesome. Every kind of ethnic cuisine is here in Chicago now. So it's just a great place. We just got to figure out the crime. But other than that, though, I love going to New York. I love going to Hong Kong. Just different experiences. But Chicago's the home. Everything's here in Chicago. We have everything here, man.
I get it.
Seriously. 15 years ago, I would argue that the Chinese food here is not that good. Now it's great. It really is. And we have the best steaks, best Italian food, so it rocks, Just got to figure out the crime, John. Just got to figure out the crime.
I understand. All right. So, Ron, so that was great. The audience is getting to know you a little better now. So tell me a little bit about your background, the quick summary version of what's transpired up to now.
Okay. As you know, we grew up in the Catholic school environment, right? I went to Catholic schools all my life, grade school, high school, St. Ignatius. With shout out to St. Ignatius, one of the best high schools out there, changed my life. From then, at the age of about 20, I went down to the Board of Trade. Went down there and tried to find a job in the market. But back then, it was a closed door society. I mean, it was, if you didn't know someone, if you were in a generation of traders, you couldn't get in. I was very fortunate enough to get involved with a gentleman that just moved here from Texas. His name is Tom Price. He started the Price Group. and I was one of the first brokers he hired at the age of like 20. Didn't know anything. So I spent the first 5-6 years just cutting my teeth, learning about hedging, risk management, option trading. And fast forward 30 years later, I'm still there. I own the firm now, and we're still very actively involved in trading, risk management, in trading the market. So it's been quite a career, growing up down at the Board of Trade, for the last 30 years. So I get all my professional experience pretty much from the markets and being around the exchanges. So that's the career side, right? And now here I am, father of three kids. My oldest son is 28, middle son 25, my daughter's 20. And, in the early days, getting married at an early age of 23 and starting having kids at 24 was a very, very tough part, if I may say so. A lot of advice I give to young people. I say, man, get situated first, both financially and both personally before you take that dive. But now looking back at it, I look like a genius, right? Because all my kids are great. We're all very tight. As you know, I have 3 older brothers. We're all very tight, so yeah.
How did you and I meet? Do you remember that?
We met at the Union League Club. That's a business club next to the Board of Trade. And it was a book signing. It was it from
Dan Pink?
Dan Pink. It was Dan Pink. Yeah, and then we went to another one. We went to Phil Jackson's one together, I believe, right? So it was Dan Pink.
We did.
That's right. He wrote a new book out at the time. It was about some version of sales or something like that. It was a really good book, and we sat next to each other. Unbeknownst to us, I either thought you were from out of town or you thought I was from out of town, and it happened to be we went to the same high school.
That's
albeit I was many years older than you. And then after that, gosh, that was like 12 years ago, wasn't it?
That was a long time ago.
12, 13 years ago. And after that, yeah, we would just meet up and talk and chat over martinis. We'd have our martini Thursdays.
That's right. Ron, the best thing I love about that story is just we didn't know each other from Adam. We were sitting down next at the same table, and it took you and I both kind of the courage to actually look at someone in the eye and say hi, and that's what spurred it.
Yeah,
I think that's what's so cool.
It was really cool, in the early days like that, and then just we fell into it. After that, we became very close buds.
Yeah.
It's been a great friendship. I love it.
It has. And so now, Ron, this is the fun part we're going to talk about. So now you have co-written one book, and now you're a full-fledged author by yourself. So you co-wrote the book with best-selling author Chris Voss, former head of the FBI prestigious hostage negotiation team, Influence and Impact. And now you are a sole author by yourself about Restore with Simplicity and Clarity.
Yes.
You're part of that. Which is amazing. So we're going to get into your book, but I want to just hear from you. How did it even pass? How did you become an author?
So as you know, I like to read a lot, and Chris Voss, he wrote a book about eight or 9 years ago. I think when I first read the book, I actually sent a picture to you to buy it as well. It was called Never Split the Difference. It was Chris Voss, after all his years of being the head of hostage negotiation for the FBI, he took his principles of negotiation and credibility building and relationship building, and he taught it to the business world. And I was one of the first people to sign up for his workshop. So I learned about his techniques and how to really, from his book, Never Split the Difference, and how to really look at the fine tenets of negotiation and trust building. And and I loved it. About 2 years ago, he reached out to former students and said, hey, would like to write a book with some students that have learned from my techniques and how they used it in their business life, in their family life. So I said, okay, I submitted a draft, a couple chapters, and he picked it. So at that time, they picked it. And then it was about out of 30 or 40 students. I think he picked up about 10 for the first edition. And we wrote the book Influence and Impact. They took about 2 chapters of my writing. And it came out, and last year when it came out, within 3 months, it went to Amazon #1. Pretty much due to Chris's name. Chris is he's all over the place. He's on YouTube right now. He's got a Broadway show coming out on him. He's got a new whiskey line. Yeah, he's got a new whiskey line. He's got all kinds of stuff going on. Yeah, he's got a whole. I think he's developing his own podcast. Something called The Difference. I think it's called. Yeah, he's a great guy. And
Okay.
so the publishers like my story so much that they're like, hey, why don't you write your own book? And why don't you write it about kind of the backdrop of what you do in terms of like how I do for retirement planning? So I said, okay. So I started writing a draft.
Sure.
It took me about a year and a half to finish. And then it just came out, released about a month ago. The first physical copies went on shipment. I'm still working with Amazon to get it placed in Amazon. And we're also looking to do the audio version on that as well. But yeah, okay. It's, retire with simplicity and clarity. It's just highlighting 10 blind spots that most people need to know for retirement. So they don't have to work longer than they want to. So I've been teaching financial literacy, retirement planning classes. I teach it here at DePaul University. I teach it up in Oakton College. I teach it out at Elmhurst University. I teach it out at University of Illinois here in Chicago. So I rotate between 4 to 5 different universities. And I've been teaching this class for about 12 years now. So I took that class and I pretty much put it in a book form. So to help people out there, there's 2 versions, one for professional women and one for all professionals. The reason why I highlighted one for professional women, the majority of my clients, for some reason, John, are women, are professional women. Single women or divorced women or widowed women. They really have a really laser focus on getting empowered for their retirement. So I dedicated like 2 or 3 chapters in the book just for them.
That's an amazing story. Your passion just comes across, Ron. Like, you're so passionate about just connecting with people, educating people. Like, that is your superpower. It's amazing. And so, like, when I read the book and flagged a bunch of different things, one of the things that I was, I know because my parents are getting older too. There's like just long-term care.
Oh yeah.
And it says, like you said, 75% of retirees will have one partner needing long-term care at one point, and like the numbers are staggering, like about $9,000 a month. And I think you mentioned something about like they'll need like for an average of like 3 years, like possibly at a time, which is a good chunk of change. Is over $300,000. Like, what do you recommend for your clients in that regard? Like, how do you start preparing for some of that?
It's a big deal. Teaching the class for so many years, I used to just pretty much breeze through the long-term care part of the class because I never felt it myself. As you know, my father passed away last year, John, and the last 2 years of his life it was brutal, especially on my mom. My mom aged like 10 years. You can see it in her face. And the cost of just, for the in-home care, it's outrageous. If it wasn't for my brothers and myself to all chip in, my mom would have probably had to sell her house. That's how crazy it got, in terms of cost. Yeah. So now that I felt it, when I teach the class, I hone in. I tell everyone, guys, I don't care how you do it. I don't care if you got to put a money away every month in a CD. You got to hedge off long-term care, honestly. So traditional long-term care policies are kind of like auto insurance. You pay for it, and if you never use it, you lose it, right? And it can be quite expensive. There are certain things out there. There's 2 or 3 different ways that you can mitigate long-term care more effectively. The one that I use personally is I use a life policy where I can tap into the death benefit. So let's say my death benefit's $400,000. Yeah. There's some insurance companies that allow you, if you design it correctly, to tap into 25% of the death benefit. So if it's $400,000, I can tap in and get $100,000 a year for 4 years, and hopefully that'll cover or mitigate most, if not all, of long-term care. So instead of, and I tell my wife, I said, hey, honey, I'm better off just dying. I mean, like just straight die, versus getting sick for every month for 4 to 5 years and drain everything and then die, right? She won't come visit me at the cemetery if I do that, right? So I use a policy like this. So if I get sick, I also have one on her. If she gets sick, we can pull 25% of the death benefit, $100,000, offset any kind of long-term care. So we don't have to then tap into our retirement, savings, investments, right? Because that can drain. Think about it. Like you said, $300,000 to $400,000, he'll just drain it right out, and that you'll leave your partner broke. And that's not what you want. So there's several ways. That's the way I do it. I use a life policy with that long-term care kind of wellness factor. But there's other ways. If they have a pre-existing health condition, if they can't pass like like a medical test for life policies. There's other ways to look at it to build some kind of long-term, but it's paramount, John. It's up there in terms of importance of any kind of solid retirement plan. Long-term care can hurt you bad. It's like the left ball coming from left field hitting you in the head. It's bad.
So when you talk about life insurance, like when is the ideal time to start looking at that? Because to your point, like I would imagine, like the younger you are, the healthier you are. So like probably yesterday, but like when should people start really looking into that?
I really think very important right after someone gets married and have children is that you really want to start to explore that for two things, right? Any kind of premature long-term care event can really cripple you even in the earlier days. But more importantly, if you're just getting married and just starting to have a family, you're still probably young and in really good health. So the cost of the insurance is very, very minimal. It's all about policy design. You want to design it appropriately, but it's never too late. Yeah. I have people that come to my class, they're in their 60s, and they know because of maybe one of their parents got a long-term care event, they know that they need coverage. So we help build it. It's never too late, but the earlier the better because it'll be cheaper, I guess is the short answer.
Like I said, to your point, like, you made your book, you have a lot of women clients, and I imagine a lot of that is because, women they outlive men. The average age is like 80 years. And for men, it's 74. So, like, tell me this, like, so, your kid's a little older than my kids. But like, what are the bands, I'll say, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50, onward, like, what do those bands look like in terms of like what people should be doing, progressing? Ideally, I know you can fix on the back half if you didn't take action early, but like ideally, what does that look like?
I love that question. Every stage of life, I love how you break it down in 10-year increments. That really is, the young years, the middle years, and then what they call the go-go years, right? The slow-go years, and then the no-go years, right? When you're in your 80s and 90s. When you're young in your 20s and 30s, I tell my kids this right now, especially if they're not married yet, they're just coming out in the workforce. I really tell them you really got to, at the young age of in the late 20s, early 30s, you want to max out your Roth accounts, right? Okay, find out if your company has a Roth 401k. Most companies offer a 401k, but a lot of young guys don't know if it's offered a Roth. A Roth is where you take after-tax money and put it into the Roth account and let it grow tax-free forever, right? If you believe tax rates are going to go up in the future, like I do a lot of research. I believe because of our government, we're $37 trillion in debt. Something's got to give. I mean, most of our tax dollars are going to go only to pay the interest on our debt. Tax rates are going to have to go up. And majority of Americans, they have all the retirement funds in traditional 401ks, traditional IRAs, which are tax-deferred accounts, right? They took a tax deduction up front, and then they let it grow tax-deferred. But when they take out money, they'll be paying taxes on the withdrawals. So what if tax rates go up sharply? Whatever money you have in your retirement fund, I don't know, let's call it $1 million. It's not really $1 million, John, right? Because we all have a silent partner. His name is Uncle Sam, right? He hasn't told you how much he's taken yet. Right. So that's the problem. So when the young people right now, I tell them if it's possible, try to max out their Roth 401k if they offer it, and also max out their Roth IRAs. Right. Okay. So stocking that way. Don't have to get fancy. Put it in index funds, ride the wave. You got 30, 40, 50 years even of investment. Just close your eyes and invest. Just invest. Yeah. Keep it cheap. Index fund, but the key is to automate it. We have so much technology now that even my sons, I tell them every paycheck, you guys have tools. Back in the day growing up, if I wanted to make an investment, I'd have to write a check, send it by mail to a mutual fund company, right? It's a lot of work. Here, you can do direct deposit into your Roth IRA every month if you want to, dollar cost average into a Vanguard index fund, and you won't even miss it. You don't even miss it. If you put away, a couple $100 a month, I mean, come on, you go out there and you spend it on sushi, right? I mean, for the young guys, don't believe me. I tell everyone in my class, don't believe me. Go home, go look up, Google search a Roth calculator, type in your age, type in, if you can max it out, 7,000. If you can, if not, let's do half, and then run it for the next 30 to 40 years, run it low, run it at 6%. I know what the numbers look like. You know, when I showed my daughter that if she were to max out her Roth for the next 30, 40 years, it showed she almost had $2.5 to $3 million tax-free by the time she's my age.
Wow.
Right? She gets it. So she's like, first thing she does, max out her Roth. Max out her Roth. If she has a Roth 401k when she starts work, max it out. Because a Roth 401k, she can put away $23,000, a year.
Right.
Plus a 7, you can put $30,000 away, tax-free, into the Roth. You pay the taxes today, but it grows tax-free. If tax rates double, you're sheltered. You're shielded. So anyone young, 20 to 30, even from 30 to 40, max out their Roth, number one. For sure. For sure.
What do you think? This is a side comment. I think you can keep going to the next band. But like, what about young people with their health plans with like HSA accounts? So I feel like that's a funding vehicle as well.
Absolutely, and there's a good HSA hack, and I'll teach you guys this. That you can start putting money. Again, it's tax-free money, right? Tax-deferred money into HSA. And when you spend it, it's tax-free on any health-related issues. What you can do is you can pay out of pocket for today's health expenses, keep the receipt, and then let the money in the HSA account grow like a Roth. 10, 15 years later, you can then show the receipts as a reimbursement.
No,
I don't know.
Really?
A lot of people don't know that. Yeah, it's an HSA hack. Look it up. Don't believe me. Yeah, so you can pay out of pocket, right, out of the health receipts today. Leave it in the account. Keep the receipts, though, and then you can reimburse yourself later with tax-free dollars. But what you're doing is that you're allowing that money in the HSA to grow tax-free like a Roth. Super tax-free growth. Yeah. So, I recommend that as well. Max out the HSA if possible. You'd have to have a high deductible plan to have an HSA. But, the moral of the story is when you're young, you're wealthy. You don't even know it because you have time. You have time value. Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Eighth wonder of the world. And according to Einstein, he's right. Compound interest makes all the difference, my man. Right? So in your 20s and 30s, even in your 40s, take advantage of that. Roth all the way. I tell people in my class, I joke around, I don't have a tattoo, but if I were to get a tattoo, it would be a Roth.
It looked good on you. It looked really good.
Yeah, Ronny Roth. So, yeah. So when you start getting into your 30s and you start making more money in your 40s, then you start to really build more wealth accumulation tools. That's when more investment accounts come in. That's when you start to really look at building income for retirement and stuff like that. So there's different phases depending on what you're at. Right. But in the early phase, it's all about putting away tax-free money. And then as you get into your 40s and 50s, you start to figure out like, hey, I got to start to plan for retirement in my 60s and 70s. So you got to start making some moves in terms of really how to design, your portfolios for what they call distribution. So in the early years, it's all about growth and accumulation, right? When you start hitting in your 50s and 60s, you start to think about retirement in your 60s. You start to wear a different hat. I teach people in my class. It's not just about growth and accumulation anymore. It's about principal protection. It's about tax efficiency, right? It's about distribution, right? You want to make sure one of the biggest risks out there, John, that a lot of pre-retirees in the red zone, I call it the red zone, that's 5 to 8 years before retirement, or people are in retirement, the number one concern, if you ask anybody, pre-retirees or retiree, is will I outlive my money? Will I run out of money in retirement? Right? So it's called longevity risk. We're all, like you said, we're all living longer, especially women. So, do you have a plan in place to make sure that you don't outlive your money? That you have money that lasts you throughout your, because when you retire, whatever that age is, 60, 65, you got to make sure your money lasts another 30 plus years, right? So that's where a lot of income planning comes in. That's actually my specialty is tax-free income. I try to figure out how to get tax-free income for clients in retirement and make sure it's a good portion is also guaranteed, kind of like a pension, but it's tax-free. Because in retirement, this is what I teach in my classes, John. In retirement, the first thing you want to solve is the income question. Where's the income coming from, right? If you're not working anymore, there's no income coming in. So where's that income coming from? How do you build it? So that's the main core of kind of what I do when I do planning. Income. Like, what do you need? What is your magic number? Everyone has a magic number. That magic number is the number that you need to fund the retirement lifestyle that you want, right? So we have to solve that. If you solve that income question, you're 70% of the way there. Yeah, Social Security, I still think it's going to be around, but it's going to look a lot different than what it looks like today, right? There's a lot of talks out there, maybe pushing back the age, maybe having some kind of metric to kind of value what the distributions would be for people. So it's definitely going to change. You know, I do a lot of research on, looking at the U.S. debt and kind of, different ways to people out there. There's a famous author out there. His name is David Walker. He wrote a book, Coming Back to America. And he was, for a good 10 to 15 years under Bush and Clinton, he was the head of the GAO, our Government Accounting Office. And he's like the United States CPA. No one knows more about fiscal policy than this guy. David Walker, look him up. And he recently rewrote his book, and he showed the math behind why he believes if we can't figure out our U.S. fiscal debt, just with Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid alone, he's like, if we can't solve that problem, we're going to have to double the taxes. Yeah, he believes that there's a really good, there's a really good odds that tax rates will double, especially for retirement accounts. So, yeah, David Walker. No, it is. That's why most, if not all, of my planning goes for tax efficiency. We have to get more tax efficient. So.
And then, Ron, so you also mentioned how there's about $84 trillion that's going to be passed down to heirs by 2045, but yet only about 32% of Americans have a will or a living trust.
Correct.
How can people start taking advantage of to plan for just that? Because like really you said, Uncle Sam's going to be there.
Correct. Do people need a will and a trust? I don't know without looking at someone's individual profile and their circumstance. But if you have assets that you want to both control the distribution while you're alive and after you pass, having a trust, people a lot of times get confused. If they have a will, they think that's all they need. Not necessarily. A will is just your written kind of thoughts on where you want things to go. If you just have a will, under certain circumstances, your assets may still go to probate, right? And probate is a real big pain. You have to hire a lawyer, an attorney, and you have to go through the whole timeline of trying to get it through. Having a trust is just an organizational tool, right? Where you can really dictate the flow of your assets to the next generation. So for me personally, I use a will and trust because I want to make sure the assets go exactly where I want them to go. All right, number one. And then number two, there is a level of family protection. People don't realize having a trust does not protect you from creditors per se. Okay. But what it does is that it allows the flow of your assets to your next generation. I want to know exactly where my assets go for my children, for my wife, etc. And that, to me, that's very important for generational planning as well. So, for example, I don't believe in leaving my children money, right? I've seen horror stories where you leave cash to your children. Even my own son, Ryan, whom you know really well, he actually said it. He was like, "Hey, Dad, if you leave me that money, I'll blow it. I will party like it's 1999." He goes, "Because it's not my money." He's being honest, right? So I have it such that in my trust, they have access to resources. I don't want to give them money. I want to give them resources. Okay. So in my trust, all the assets will be in the trust. So they can then go to the trust for health reasons if they need it for health reasons. If I will help them for first home buying. If they want to do higher education, they have access to the funds in the trust. Or let's say my great granddaughter, right? If she's smart enough to get an MIT, she doesn't have to go get a school loan. She can get it from the trust, right? And it's generational. If they want to borrow from the trust, rather than borrow from a bank at 7 or 8%, they can borrow from the trust at whatever lower interest rate, but pay it back. Because what that does, I'll be long gone. But what that does is that it keeps all that into the family, and that keeps growing the generational wealth. Because every generation, if they learn how to really manage the money properly, every generation, the net worth goes 10x. It's big because of time value of money. I tell people Don't believe me? Look up this. Go Google search. It's called the Rockefeller Waterfall Trust. Look at what the Rockefellers did. That's why they're still around. That's why they own Rockefeller Plaza, the center.
Yeah.
And that's why people like the Vanderbilts, there's only one Vanderbilt around that's still wealthy, but it didn't come from the estate. That's Anderson Cooper from CNN. He's a Vanderbilt. But
right. Yeah, right.
His money didn't come from the Vanderbilt. It came from himself. There's not one Vanderbilt today that's as wealthy as Commodore back in the day, because they spent it all. They never used trust appropriately for generational. Yeah, but the Rockefellers, they mastered the art of the Rockefeller Waterfall Trust. So I teach my clients, if you care about your generations, you absolutely, and it doesn't cost a lot of money. Surprisingly, a lot of people think trusts are for wealthy families. No, it's for families that want to become wealthy. So that's a big
now. So Ron, so do you? Yeah. Do you believe, or how do you have these conversations with your family? Like, do they know your wishes, or how do you talk about that?
Oh, great question. So when they were younger, when the kids were in their teens, they always roll their eyes anytime I bring up anything family-wise, estate planning-wise, investment-wise. Right. I've been telling them, remember, I started their Roth accounts when they were really young, and they would just roll their eyes. Okay. But now that they're in their 20s and they're in the workforce, now we sat them down. I just updated my trust recently, and I sat down my entire family. We went through all the trust, all our holdings, and I actually told them, I said, guys, when I say I don't want to leave you money, it's not because I don't love you. I don't want to leave you money because I want to leave you guys resources. I want to teach you guys how to manage these resources to continue for your own families, right? And they got it. Now that they're in their 20s, they all get it, especially my daughter. As you know, Sophia, she got it really quick.
Right.
She was like, man, she was okay, I get it. Because she knows that, if you're planning for the future, you have that conversation, say, guys, you want to keep this generational wealth going because it just helps you. I'll be long gone and dead, right? If you guys learn these skill sets and how to model it, the next further generation, 3, 4, 5 generations, it'll keep on going. And that's the power behind it. So now that they're in their 20s, and they're working, they get it, John. They get it because you sit down and you just explain it to them.
I'm saying if someone's interested in like following a path of like being a financial advisor, like what would you recommend for them?
Wow. Great question. It's all about studying. You really have to study it, for the way we build and the way we advise a lot different than what most advisors are out there. We truly come from the tax side of it. So our focus is always on tax efficiency, tax-free income. So they would really have to study. I got training. I'm part of a tax-free income specialist group that we meet every week, and we go over major case studies, and we constantly get educated on that paradigm of tax-free income planning. Okay. So I think if anyone's interested in that, they got to study it from that, in my opinion, because taxes are so important in retirement. So they really have to go and really take a deep dive. There's classes out there that they can take for that. But it's just continuous reading. As you know, I read tremendous amount on this, and I'm always on the cusp of anything that's new out there. You do. And I make it a point to be involved, if you will, on all the new tax laws, all the new techniques out there, strategies out there. So I spend a lot of time not only staying in tune, but also really discovering, how are other people doing it? I never think that I know everything, right? I'm actually the opposite. I want to learn more stuff that other people are doing that are effective that maybe I'm not doing, right? So,
sure.
But I would start by probably reading my book.
Very true. Very true.
Right. Reading my book.
So actually, so Ron, so let me ask this. So if someone's interested in following up and have questions and they want to understand, like, how do they start the process? Like, how do they get a hold of you, Ron?
The best is just to email me. My email address is rmark@ciacinc.com. That's rmark@ciacinc.com. CIAC is our firm, Chicago Investment Advisory Council.
Sure.
We'll probably put the link in your somewhere on your thing. And then
the link your email.
Yeah, and there's a site. I'll send you. I forgot to send you, John, my site. I set up a site where people can come I offer my book out for free. All they got to do is pay for shipping. And
I saw that. I do have that.
Okay,
So I'll link to that as well.
So I donated a lot of these books to a lot. Actually, I'm speaking in front of a women's business league in Chicago, and I donated pretty much the books to them. All they got to do is pay for shipping, and I offer out a 15 to 30-minute Zoom consultation if anyone has any questions.
Fantastic.
This is how I give back. I really enjoy teaching, and this is my own way to give back. So.
No, you're a good teacher. You're just a good person, Ron, which is awesome.
Thank you, man. No, I have a passion for this, John, as you know. So.
Right. Well, Ron, we can keep talking. We'll have another conversation after this about about personal connections and how that all works. You have a special talent for that as well. But I loved our conversation. Really enjoyed it. So I'll have those links below as well. I do ask anyone who's listening if they click the subscribe button to listen to Ron and also listen to future guests. So Ron, thank you.
A pleasure.
My audience,
pleasure.
The audience out there. Until next time, work hard and make it happen. And we'll see you soon.
Absolutely. All right, John.